Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Common Good Data Podcast. My name is Drew Reynolds. Folks, I have an exciting episode for you all here today to really, I think, set the tone for the new year for us. New Year's are opportunities for us for moments of reflection and thinking about the future and goal setting and all those things. You probably have some New Year's resolutions. As leaders of organizations, you're probably thinking, what should I be focusing on, our organization be focusing on? Where should we be investing our time and our energy? And how should we avoid, some of the challenges that maybe you experienced last year, whether it was funding challenges or uncertainty in the kind of fundraising marketplace, or maybe challenges in implementing some of your programs. And my thinking, or my invitation for you today, is to think less about busyness and just taking on more stuff, which sometimes is a temptation to do at the beginning of a new year, and really to start coming down to focus on what is the most important in your organization and what are the things that you really want to see accomplished. Maybe there are things that you've put to the side in the past or you felt like you didn't have enough time to do, but I think these are some really key things that I think you as an organization leader should be focusing on. So I'm going to share with you today 3 things that nonprofit and social sector leaders should be thinking about in 2026. And there's a bit of a framework around what those 3 things are. So the first one is on clarity. And it is so important as social sector leaders to have a really clear sense of who you are, what you do, what you accomplish, have that confidence in that, and really understanding your mission and purpose, and having a strategy for how you go about the work that you do. Now, to make this a bit more concrete, sometimes we kind of think, oh yeah, I know what my mission is, and I know the good sense of what it is that we do and whatnot. But it's really about having a clarity of making sure, hey, I know exactly what the challenges and the problems are in the community that I work in. And I know exactly how our organization has tailored our sets of programs and services and offerings to meet that challenge in a way that nobody else can. And not only that, I can tell somebody very clearly how we do it differently or in a unique way, in a way that some other organization in our community does not, and that you're filling a really important need. And in that process, too, that you have thought about and you have a really clear sense of how you're going to be able to demonstrate and show that the programs and services you're offering are having this incredible impact. Now, for organizations who do this work, you might think, how is it that I think through? What are the sort of technical things and skills that I need to do that? Well, you'll probably hear about things like logic models, for example, or putting together a theory of change for your organization. You may already have some documents like this. Maybe you're putting together some type of strategic plan, which could also put into that. And sometimes people use KPIs and try to put together some outputs or outcomes that they're trying to measure. If all of that resonates with you, that means that's good. You're on the right track. If you haven't done some of those things, you should look into them. But the key here is, is despite kind of all the sort of, strategic and researchy jargon that I can sometimes well up in us for, I think that what you really want to be doing to simplify it a little bit is to say, hey, what is it that we do? How do we do it? And how do we measure and show that success? And having that clarity on what those 3 things are, I think makes so much of your work a lot easier as a nonprofit or social sector leader. Now, once you have that sense of clarity, the next thing you want to do is to then figure out, okay, how am I going to actually take that clear vision that I have as a leader and then turn that into impact? So how do I take that vision and make it real in the community that I serve, in the organization that I work in? And impact is going to mean really not just implementing the work, but also measuring that success. So, of course, you're going to have to do a lot of work on the implementation, and that means working with your staff to ensure that they're implementing the programs and services as intended. You're checking in with people and holding them accountable and raising the bar in your organization, expecting lots of them as well as you do of yourself, so that you can make sure that the standards of service that you provide are fantastic. As a part of that, you also really want to be making sure that you're measuring that difference, right? So when a person comes into your organization, participates in a program, receives a service, or does something and engages with you in some way, that you know very clearly what they're going to be able to do differently as a result of that, right? A question that I always think is one of the most important questions to ask as leaders is, what is it that, the clients, the individuals, the communities that we serve, what are they able to do as a result of the work that we've done? And it's taking that onus off of you. It's not about what you can do. It's not about me saying, hey, we provide these great programs, or hey, we provided all this food at the food pantry. No, what you want to be able to say is what is it that they can now do? They can have conversations with their children about risky behaviors and substance use that they weren't able to have before. They're able to find secure and stable housing and stay in that secure and stable housing for 6, 12, 24 months, something like that. They're able to, be able to find employment that is meaningful, that helps generate an income for them, that helps them to sustain their life and their work. Those are the types of things that you really want to be thinking about is what is the change that's going to be happening in those that you serve? And then in turn, building a strategy to be able to measure that and to measure that in a quantitative way and qualitative way. So on the quantitative side, being able to figure out what are some of those outcomes that you're going to be trying to measure, or KPIs that you're going to try to measure that are really going to be able to articulate well, how many people are employed as a result of your program, how many people are housed, how long are they staying in houses, what percentage of people who go through your program reach certain type of success, right? Staying sober, for example, or whatever it is that outcome is for you. Now, as you do that process and develop that process for measuring that impact, then you kind of find ways to report on that and get that information out into the world. And so that goes from our, clarity was our first step. Our second one here is impact. And our third one goes into that funding one, which is where you take this information around this impact and then you turn it into building a strategy for communicating that with the world that is ultimately then going to encourage others and invite others to participate in the success of your mission, right? And what this process really involves is about building trusting relationships, about telling the story of your organization, and building meaningful relationships with people who are excited about your cause area just as much as you are, and then showing them that they can also be participants in it and can help contribute to and further that success. And that's really one of the things around funding. I think sometimes we get caught up as write the grants or put together the event, or you do the things that we talk about as fundraising appeals, put together a Giving Tuesday campaign, right? Funding is much more about thinking, how is it that I can engage the people that are already interested in this topic and who are already interested in looking for ways to get involved, whether that's through volunteer work, whether that's through financial contribution, whether that's a connection to somebody else who can help to contribute, and sort of activating the interest of those people around you. Now, when you have a really strong sense of who you are, you've got that clarity in what you do, and you've figured out how to demonstrate impact. Hey, this is the change that we are observing in those who participate in our programs and services. This is what they're able to do because they came here and worked with our organization. Then it's just simply a matter of taking that information, translating it, and communicating that in a way that resonates with people in your community who want to participate in that in some form or fashion. And funding, of course, is one of those. To do that, you want to be thinking about sharing stories. So how can you gather testimonial data or do interviews with people who have participated so they can share a little bit about why they participated and how much of an impact the programs or services had on them. You'll want to be thinking too about, what does your reporting structure look like? Do you have an annual report or an annual impact report that summarizes all of the success of your organization last year and puts that in a way that people can understand? And that includes some quantitative data that shows some of that change that the clients and individuals that you served have experienced as a result of your work. So you want to have some type of reporting structure in place. You might also be thinking about other kind of novel ways to communicate that impact, whether that's having an increased social media presence to share and communicate those stories and talk to others about the success that you're having, and invite them into the work in some kind of way. It might be that you're trying to think about doing other types of communication strategies, like a letter campaign, or even if you're being really outside the box, doing something like putting up a billboard about the work that you do. I don't know. You can think about a lot of different strategies that are going to work for your organization. But the key is to get information out into the community about who you are and what you do. And I think, as I have observed organizations go through this process of clarity, impact, and funding, it's this third step around funding that can sometimes feel the hardest. And we get caught in the idea that we have to simply make an ask without thinking, what are we asking for? We make a decision about, well, we need to go find funders, as opposed to realizing that your organization should be attracting people. You should be a magnet for the people who are interested in your cause area, in your organization. They should know who you are, what you do, and the impact that you have. And if you can do all that pre-work, then it doesn't feel like an ask when you're going to that, having that one-on-one conversation with a donor or from somebody from a community foundation. It's going to be, oh, I already know who your organization is. I've already seen a little bit about your impact. Let's talk about ways that it makes sense for you to get involved in the organization, right? And that kind of shifts that conversation, I think, a little bit on the funding, where it's really about getting that information out into the community beforehand, inviting people into your work, becoming a magnet rather than somebody who asks all the time, and becoming a magnet that attracts people who are interested in your mission. And then ultimately turning that into successful funding opportunities that then support your work. Now, I know when I talk about magnet, it's really a bit more for the sort of donor fundraising and local fundraising opportunity, but I still think that that's very much the case when you're doing work for state and federal grants, where I know it's a bit more formulaic and you're putting together your grant proposals and whatnot. But the key with those is that when you have shown prior success, you have said, hey, we applied for this federal grant previously, we had this success, we spent this money in this responsible way, and we achieved these outcomes. You write about that in your narratives. You write about that, how you're going to extend and build upon that, and that this new, state or federal funding that you're seeking to receive as a grant writing organization, or as a grant writer yourself, that you're then talking about how, hey, I'm going to build on that success. And we've already shown proven results. And that you can be pretty confident, if you're a person working at a federal state agency, that if you fund this program, you're going to see some results come out of it, because we've shown that existing prior success. So clarity as your first one, second, impact, and third, funding. Now, I have actually developed a model that talks about what I call the Clarity Impact Funding Framework, or the CIF framework, that I think tries to really articulate all these different steps for you as an organization. So if you're interested in that Clarity Impact Funding Framework, check out a new online course that I have online. It's called Breaking the Starvation Cycle. And if you go to commongooddata.com/courses, you can check that out. The course is for free, and it dives into each of these topics that I talked about today with a little bit more detail that can help you as you think about how to take the next step, try some new things, and set some goals in 2026. So thanks so much for the conversation today, and look forward to further conversations with you about how you can demonstrate and show impact in your organization and secure the funding that you need to continue to sustain the awesome work that you do.